Coming up on a special episode of Nails and Beauty Talk, we speak with Professor, Cellular and Molecular Biologist, Dr. Christina Parks. On this episode, Dr. Christina Parks talks about her platform Vaita, how diet plays a role in physical and mental health, the importance of fat and cholesterol, and how chemicals in beauty products affect women's health and the endocrine system.
First of all, as I knew, these beauty products, especially anything with epoxy, so you're talking about the nails, the nail glue, the eyelash glue, and anything with a fragrance, this all goes right through your skin. That epoxy and some of those different chemicals in it will pull all of these toxic chemicals right through your nail bed, right through your skin. They're fat soluble, so they're going to go right to fatty areas of your body, and your ovaries are one area that are very fatty. So they're going to go right to those. Many of these are very similar to your hormones, to estrogen, to testosterone. So they are going to mimic hormones, but in a way that's dysregulated. So they are actually going to dysregulate your reproductive health.
Polish in my hand, I'm ready to create each nail a masterpiece. I can hardly wait. Soft pastels or vibrant hues, each tells a tale in their artistry of nails. Nothing ever fails. With each swirl and twirl, let the magic begin. In this kingdom of gloss, there's no end to the wind. Gloss on my fingertips, watch them shine bright. Painted like a canvas, colors taking flight. Feeling fierce and fabulous, I'm ready to ignite. Slaying the nail game every single night. Nails and beauty talk with Asia the Bird. Nails and beauty talk with Asia the Bird.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nails and Beauty Talk. I am your host, Asia the Bird. Today, we have a very special guest, a fantastic guest today. Please welcome molecular biologist, Dr. Christina Parks. Hello, Dr. Christina, and welcome.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yes, absolutely. I want to go ahead and get started by asking where you're originally from and tell us a little about your upbringing.
I'm from everywhere. I was actually born in California. Then I went to Wakkanai, Japan, Colorado Springs. So my parents were in the military. My family is from Texas. My father's family is from Texas. So my parents went back to Kingsville, Texas, where they're from. There's like an epic mini series drama from our family history, but I can't go into that now. So I met some of my relatives when I was very, young, 3 to 4 years old in Kingsville. But then my parents went to college there. Then my dad got a job in Georgia. He was a general manager for Prudential Real Estate, so he made buildings. So we were very upper middle class, living in Gwinnett County, Georgia. Then they offered him a position in Minnesota, so we moved to the Minneapolis area, which was cold. And I graduated from high school there and went to college in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which is perhaps the coldest place on earth. And then I went to graduate school at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor.
Oh, wow. All right. So I want to get into as far as like what drew your interest into like science, get into, molecules and cells and things like that.
It's really interesting because when I was in high school, I was actually in drama. And so actually I'm a teacher. And so they actually go well together. You wouldn't think. You wouldn't think. Yeah. And I was in several plays at one time. I was in a 1-act drama that we made ourselves, and it went to state. And so as a result of that particular thing, I missed a lot of class and I missed a lot of biology. And when I came back, we had just done a unit on genetics. And I said, to my classmate, I said, what are we doing? And they said, well, we're doing DNA and genetics. And I said, didn't we already finish that? Like, didn't we actually take a test on that? And she's like, yeah, everybody failed. And I was like, and I had barely been there and I had just barely skimmed the chapter, right? Do you know what I mean? I'm just like doing the bare minimum, missed tons of class. And he, because I had been gone, he handed back my test as I'm talking to her and I had like 92%. And he said, oh, and you might want to read this book on the cell or something like that. And I was like, okay, a career as a dancer, which is what I really wanted to be, as an
Oh,
actress or whatever,
wow.
really not very practical. So maybe I should go into science. And
Mm,
it, especially genetics, this idea of your genes, being encoded and expressing different proteins and how the cell actually did that was really just fascinating to me. And I thought it was more of a concrete career choice. So at that
mhm.
point, it was just like, well, let me go take these classes. And I was still like super overachiever then, like give me the hardest thing you've got. Like, I'm not
Right,
like
right,
that
right, right,
anymore.
right. Yeah, yeah.
I'm not like that anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting how your first interest was like in the arts, into drama and acting and things like that. Like, I would have never thought like, oh, I would think like really science was always something that you wanted to do. You know what I mean? So, for me personally, I'm an artist through and through. I love art. I love doing illustration and things like that. And, like I just never thought like, you got into the arts first before you got into science.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a dichotomy. I'm terrible artist. I have no visual spatial abilities whatsoever. Like,
Mhm.
that's like worse. Like, I would get like 98, 99 on all those standardized tests, but like
Right.
they'd ask me, what does the other side of this cube look like? Like, I don't know. I can't see the backside of it. Like, so,
Mhm.
and I get like 33% of that and 33% at any clerical administrative thing. So I'm like, make a mental note, 2 areas not to go into. But
Right.
I think that God had a plan, and I actually, when I got to my undergraduate, they had just started a new major, which was a double major. So,
Mhm.
usually what is a major, like 30 credit hours or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
I think
and
so.
this was a double major. It was 80 credit hours for the major,
Mhm.
and it was in molecular biology and biochemistry. So biochemistry is all the
Mm.
reactions in your body,
Wow.
and it also has to do with how to purify different like biological substrates. I mean, we had to take a class called biophysical chemistry, and I just would sit
Mm.
there during that class
Wow.
going, yeah, maybe I'll understand this at some point, but it's not now.
Yeah, yeah.
and
Mm.
and then molecular biology is actually has to do with actually understanding like DNA and RNA, our genetic information, and our
Right.
proteins, and how to like manipulate those, how to even like gene therapy kind of a thing, how to
Yeah.
test for different things, how to actually construct different gene therapy types of things.
Right.
So, like, I had one class that he's like, oh, I tried to make this an 8 or 9 credit class, but they wouldn't. It's 4. So, good luck
Mm.
with having that in your rest of your course load and calculus or whatever.
Mhm.
So with that said, so I studied a lot about genetic information. I studied a lot about metabolic reactions. Then I went to
Mm.
graduate school. That was the first time that major had been offered, so it was very new. When I went to graduate school, they did have a program in cellular and molecular biology, which is similar. Cellular biology is understanding all the different things in the cell. Cell's like a little city, and it makes proteins. It does all sorts of things. And so understanding how all the parts of the cell interact to make things, and different cells are different. The cells in your liver do one thing, the cells in your skin do another. But how does the cell interact, and how do they come together to form tissues, et cetera, et cetera?
Mhm.
Whereas, again, molecular biology is very much how to manipulate genetic information. And when I was in school, one of the big, huge topics was gene therapy, experimental gene therapy, which is
Mm.
how I knew exactly when these injections came out that they were experimental gene therapy, because I knew exactly the platforms and everything down to a T.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I want to get into in terms of just in regards to like what makes you stand out? Like what makes you different from, a medical doctor as far as the approach to healing?
So medical doctors have a and actually in graduate school, we teach medical doctors because it's a really different perspective. Medical doctors are really just trying to understand, systems in your body, and how to treat illness. We go to the absolute core, your DNA, your RNA, and your cells. And so I went into that because I wanted to understand it at the deepest cause, the absolute root cause. And so you get
Mm.
into chemistry, you actually get into quantum mechanics, you get into energy, like
Mm.
it's all one. And so you start to integrate all of these things. So I can integrate energy into biochemistry, quantum mechanics, like all of it, because I have all of that knowledge to get absolutely right down to the core. And
Right.
so I really wanted to understand things at the root core. and actually be able to apply it to make a difference. Now, I didn't really, when I was in school, I really didn't feel like I was able to do that. I really didn't feel like, I felt like our reductionistic system really sucked my soul dry. I'll just put it like that. And I just really wasn't feeling like the reason that I came in was being expressed. And so at the same time, there was an organization called Association of Multicultural Scientists, of which I was a part and eventually president. And we were bringing science programs into the Ypsilanti school system, which is a primary minority disadvantaged school system right outside of Ann Arbor, where there were great racial disparities between Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. And as I did that, I really felt I wanted to connect with hearts and minds.
Right.
And so I made the decision to actually leave science at the time and go into teaching. But because you study everything from such a deep level, you're always thinking about it. And so I started thinking about, part of the problem with science is you're so much chasing this little bitty goal, like this tiny little area of science. It's so complex that nobody else in the world understands it.
Right.
That you can't see the forest for the trees. So now I was able to back up and say, I always had an interest in like vitamin D. And I had some different scientific journals. They were just general scientific journals that I kept, and I would kind of keep up on them. And so vitamin D was one of the things that really, really piqued my interest. And as I followed it, that's kind of what led me into food nutrition, as well as I always had chronic health problems. And so I was trying to figure out like kind of what was wrong with me. Or, I just had a lot of questions. And so as I took the questions and sought answers scientifically, I had a really, really strong base to do that. Instead of just kind of to know what was actual real and what was BS.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to get into the next topic as far as your platform called Vaita. So talk about your platform and what is the mission behind your platform?
So Vaita stands for, I won't say the first word, but it's Injury Teaching Alliance. But what it is, it has a lot of information about injections, both childhood and related to the last pandemic that we had. But really, it's a health recovery platform because there are genetic susceptibilities that make people more likely to be injured, or people need to understand how toxicity plays a role in whether there is something that trips your wire. Like for some people, it could be an injection. For other people, it could be mold. For other people, it could be an infection, like a viral infection. So there's many, many different things, or even a car accident. But I want people to understand all the different parts and pieces. And as I said, I taught high school for quite some time. And so my goal is to bring this deep scientific knowledge down to a way that you can understand it and scaffold it step by step. Many of the videos behind the very, very small paywall are 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, because like when I give a lecture, nobody asks questions at the end. Their brain is full.
Right.
Seriously.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
So I'm like, okay, maybe. And so I try to break it down into digestible chunks. And as I did when I taught, scaffold you into an understanding because like nobody knows what to believe. Like when we talk about diet, when we talk about, which products to use, everybody's trying to find something. And so my goal is to tell people this, not that, or this is okay, but only when it's a really great product developed in these ways or whatever, so that people don't spend their time and energy and money doing things that aren't working. And that's time that is taken away from their family, their health, and the destruction of their hope of having a better life. So I want them to, almost everybody, you hear this story all the time, they go to the doctors don't know what's wrong with you because they're not looking at those root causes, which goes back to your question that I'm not sure I ever answered. Your doctors are just assessing a set of symptoms, and now they're driven by the pharmaceuticals. So they're just giving you a pharmaceutical most of the time. I'm really, really driven by root causes. And so because of that, I'm looking for mechanisms of injury and to tell you, these are the things that could be wrong. These are the things you need to pay attention to. These are the pillars of health that we all need to be implementing in our lives. These are the ways to detox. This is the way your body was made to heal itself. Your body was made to heal itself. Your body was actually probably made to live relatively indefinitely.
Wow.
Yeah. So, this design this idea that it kind of just evolved randomly. I mean, I'm not saying there is no evolution, it depends on your own theological worldview, but it didn't evolve randomly. I can tell you that. I can tell you that. It is so super, super complex. But many of the solutions are not actually that complex. And over time, that we have a huge amount of ancestral knowledge that has been lost in preference for experts. And a lot of times the experts can't see the forest for the trees. And so I'm trying to go back to root causes, but also led me to a lot of ancestral information that I think has a lot to offer us, and the need to scientifically validate that so people know that they're not wasting their time and energy.
Absolutely. So I want to switch gears and talk about mental health and wellness. So what is the chemistry as far as just with mental health, and how does diet play a role in mental health?
Yeah, I think we are starting to hear in the media a lot more about this gut-brain connection, and it really is true. First of all, the bacteria in your gut are going to tell you what to eat. So if you're eating garbage, if you're eating a lot of sugar, they're going to start craving that and making you crave it.
Right.
So it can be kind of a hurdle to change your diet. And a lot of the neurotransmitters are actually made into your gut, or there's signaling molecules from your gut that go to your brain that tell you what signaling molecules to make. As well as, of course, your microbiome, the bacteria in your gut, also tell your body what to absorb. So a lot of your mood is actually determined by your gut. And if you have an unhealthy gut, you are going to struggle. And so there are so many things that we have to overcome. We have our own trauma. We have transgenerational trauma. We've got daily life stresses that if I can help people get the biochemistry right. So, for instance, my own daughter struggled emotionally, and she was oppositional, and she was just a hot mess. She was just always, I was on pins and needles because she was always about to lose it, and emotionally. And I knew it was biochemical. I knew it was. I just didn't know what to do about it. And through a series of different things, which was a pretty bumpy road, I figured out by giving her magnesium and B6, which is twice a day, it changed her life completely and changed our lives completely from basically living hell to a very, very livable. And one example is she had spiraled out of control, and she was screaming hysterically about her dad, who at the time was in the yard putting up hay. I'm like, your dad is right there. You can see him. Why are you spiraling out of control? I mean, I wasn't yelling at her. I'm just thinking this, right? And I didn't know what to do. And this is going on for like 20 minutes. And I finally am like at my wit's end, and I ran a hot bath, and I put some Epsom salts in it, thinking just maybe the temperature change in water would help her calm down. I pulled her into the bath on top of me just to, comfort her, whatever, change of pace. And within 20 minutes, she could self-regulate. She was no longer screaming hysterically. She could self-regulate, and she could actually take no for an answer. And I was like, what just happened here? And Epsom salt has magnesium in it. Magnesium helps you not to spiral out of control, which is why you crave chocolate, dark chocolate, which is very high in magnesium. When you're about to ready to want to hit somebody, you're like, okay, I don't want to hit them. Where's my chocolate? Right? Because it stops you. So there are B vitamins are extremely important for your mood. Those are actually made by bacteria in your gut, but you do also get them from food. So I'd say your gut health, whether you're absorbing those and whether you're getting your B vitamins. Now, interestingly enough, we talked about ancestral diets. Ancestral diets, they used to ferment their food. They used to make sourdough bread. They often fermented many of their seeds and grains. And when you ferment things, it actually increases the amount of B vitamins in them. And since we stopped doing that in our modern world, and we don't eat very many fermented foods, like pickles used to be fermented. I ferment my own pickles. We don't really get enough B vitamins. And so our mental health suffers. Also, meat is a great source of B vitamins. So many people have gone vegan, and they're not getting the B vitamins they need. There are some ways to get that without necessarily eating meat, but it's a little bit difficult, and people really need to understand the science behind it and not just think that, a lot of people just think, well, this is ethically or morally superior. I'm going to do it. It's going to be fine. And the people that I deal with, for a short time, can help detox the body. But for a long term, I find people are struggling. And when they implement, and it's not like you have to go eat half a cow. When they implement some things to get foods that replace those B vitamins, B12 being the most well known, they see a significant upgrade in their health and in their mental health.
Yeah, absolutely, most definitely. So I want to get into as far as ketosis. What is ketosis for people that don't know?
So when we're talking about dieting, like, let me take a step back. One of the worst things that they ever did was like this low fat diet.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Our bodies can use sugar for fuel,
Mhm.
and most of our bodies do. And but that spikes insulin, and that can actually lead you to gain weight, and it can lead to inflammation, and it can also lead to diabetes. And that's a little bit complex. But what many people have found has been working better is to actually do a low carb diet. And
Mhm.
what the goal here is, whether people realize it or not, is to
Mhm.
have the body burn fat for fuel instead of sugar. So ketosis is when you allow your body to make the switch from burning sugar for fuel to burning fat. And
Mm.
it's a much more stable state, and you tend to not have as much hunger, as much many cravings. And when you do that, you actually are helping your body detox. You turn on all sorts of cellular healing pathways,
Mhm.
and it's very anti-inflammatory. In fact, it's so anti-inflammatory that a ketogenic diet, there were children, and this is where it was originally developed scientifically,
Mhm.
children who had seizures and nothing worked for them. No seizure medications worked. And they found that when no seizure medications worked, if they put them on a ketogenic diet, which was a diet high in fats, low in carbohydrates, and a lot of times intermittent fasting or something, um, where they were burning fat for fuel instead of sugar, so you have to reduce the sugar in your diet,
Mhm.
they actually were able to reduce or eliminate their seizures because it's so
Mm.
anti-inflammatory for the body.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. I want to get into in terms of fat and cholesterol. So how important is fat and cholesterol for the human body?
So yeah, what people think, we were taught that fat was bad. That was actually a marketing campaign for processed foods.
Mm.
So like, what a
Wow.
surprise, right?
Yeah.
And against these whole foods, like whether it's beef or whether it's milk or butter. And fat, every cell of your body is membrane is made out of fat. And the
Mhm.
cell membrane doesn't just protect the cell, it's actually the most complex signaling interface in the universe.
Mhm.
Let me repeat that. Your cell membrane, made out of fat, is the most complex signaling computer in the universe. It integrates hundreds, if not thousands, of signals from other cells and from your environment
Mhm.
to tell the cell what to do and to tell the cell which genes to turn on or off.
Mhm.
And the fats that make up that cell membrane, this computer interface, are absolutely important. And so if you don't have the correct fats, or if you don't have healthy fats, if you have synthetic fats from, like, who knows, from a Twinkie, that is
Mhm.
not going to work correctly. And the signaling in
Mhm.
your body is going to break down. And when communication in your body breaks down, guess what manifests? Disease. So to me, disease is really almost always a lack of proper communication. Because if your body's communicating properly, your immune cells will destroy viruses, bacteria, fungus. They'll also destroy cancerous cells. So it's when your body is not communicating well, the cell membrane isn't made of the fats. Fats also surround your nervous system, your nerves, your brain, and insulate it and provide protection as well as signaling.
Mhm.
So when you don't have healthy fats, that's compromised. And as far as cholesterol has been demonized in order to sell seed oils such as corn oil and soy oil. And
Mhm.
on my Vita website, I actually have a presentation about that where you can take it step by step and understand why that happened. And in
Mhm.
order to sell those, because of complex things, seed oils actually lower your blood cholesterol, which isn't
Mhm.
necessarily a good thing, but they wanted to market it as one. So they
Mhm.
needed to demonize cholesterol. And this is a fairly long, complex story, because you're like, okay, you say that, but so you can watch my webinar for all of the little proofs along the way.
Mhm.
But essentially, cholesterol is used to make all of your steroid hormones. So those are your sex hormones: testosterone, estrogen, cortisol. So your stress hormones. It is also necessary, again, for every cell membrane in your body. So if you are gestating a child, you need cholesterol to make every single one of their cells. And if you don't have enough cholesterol, their cell membranes and their cells are not going to be healthy, and they're not going to be resistant to viral infection and other things. So what they don't tell you is that marginally high cholesterol may be associated with a certain level of disease, but that's only because cholesterol is responding to the inflammation. So whenever you're sick or inflamed, your body makes more cholesterol to make more stress hormones and everything to like fix the problem. So it's kind of like the fire department coming. So it would be like saying fire departments, that fire truck, it causes fire because every time I see a fire, there's a fire truck there. So those fire trucks must be causing the fire. In fact, it's the opposite. The cholesterol is trying to put out the fire, it's trying to fix it. And what they don't tell you is if you have low cholesterol, especially if you're a man, because cholesterol is used to make vitamin D and testosterone, your all-cause mortality goes through the roof. If you don't have enough cholesterol, especially as a man, to make that testosterone, your all-cause mortality is sharply, sharply increased. So they never tell you that low cholesterol is actually associated with more death from all kinds of things and with really, really, really poor mental health. So that is another possible detriment of a vegan diet and not getting enough cholesterol. Now, again, the amount that you need, and your body does make 2/3 of it, is not extreme. And some of these fatty acids is not extreme. So we're not talking about going from eating, a complete vegan diet to eating steak every night from dinner. No, your need is actually relatively small, but it needs to be very focused in making sure that you are getting what you need. And again, if you don't have enough cholesterol, your mental health is going to suffer, your body's going to suffer, and you're going to have more death from all causes.
Wow.
Including, suicide is a big one.
Wow. That's so interesting. I never thought like just how you explain as far as the impact of cholesterol and how it can affect you mentally. Like I never thought of it that way. That cholesterol plays a big role with mental health, and it plays a role with physical health. And and the thing is that it's been categorized, like how you said, as something negative. You don't want to have your cholesterol too high or something like that. Or you see a lot of people that transition to having a full-blown vegan diet and things like that, and don't really realize or like try to say like, hey, there's some benefits, or try to understand or educate themselves in terms of the benefits and the pros as far as cholesterol.
Right. And just so that you understand, I'm not here to say this or that is bad or good, to help you understand so that you can make more informed choices for what you're eating or what you're doing. And again, your body makes a lot of cholesterol, but what are the best things for you to make it for? One of the things that kind of set me off, about like 30 years ago, I was in graduate school, and I was with another sister who was working on something called homocysteine, which I had no idea at the time what it was. It's critically important. Okay, so this is going back to those root causes. And she said, cholesterol isn't the cause of heart disease. And I'm thinking, no, I don't know. I don't have any idea, right? I wasn't taught this. She said it's actually homocysteine. And elevated homocysteine is what is correlated with heart disease and all kinds of problems, clogged arteries and everything else. And I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I just listened to her talk. And of course, the work that she was doing was some of the most important work out there. But the point is, that was 30 years ago that they knew in science that the real marker is homocysteine. And homocysteine is part of something called the methylation cycle. And if you're in any kind of health recovery, there's something called MTHFR. There are mutations in this cycle that predispose you to inflammation, that make it so that your body is not making its master antioxidant, glutathione. So it's actually a dysregulation of some of these cycles that are the problem. And so in terms of health recovery, one of the things that I do is step by step try to educate people on how to identify if they have this problem and how to solve it, instead of just giving a drug for something that isn't the problem, like a cholesterol lowering drug isn't the problem. Right. Instead, like, what is your methylation cycle? Is there a supplement that you can add that will help tweak an aberrant methylation cycle? What are some things if you have, and especially in terms of racial predispositions as well? So what are some predispositions that we have? What should you look for? And what can you do to compensate, right? Instead of, because the doctors aren't looking at it that way. They're looking at, we've got a drug we need to push, and and you check all the boxes.
Yeah. I want to get into as far as beauty products. So beauty products are sold in the market that contain a lot of, bad chemicals, things that can alter our immune system, especially, the endocrine system. I remember, we had a conversation over the phone where you talked about how beauty products can impact the endocrine system. So in what ways or what other ways do beauty products affect women's health?
Right. So this is a huge topic, and I applaud you for being brave enough to come forward with it since you're in the industry and face it head on. I recently did a deep dive into this because as a chemist, I actually already knew that they were toxic. And someone was like, well, maybe you could paint your nails and be a little bit more feminine. I'm like, then, at first I felt like, yeah, okay, I'm not a very good woman or whatever. I'm really bad at all of this. But then I was like, wait a minute. There's a reason I don't do that, and it's because it's toxic.
Right.
And then I was like, well, I can't just go around saying that. So let me do the research. And what the research showed was absolutely horrifying. First of all, as I knew, these beauty products, especially anything with epoxy, so you're talking about the nails, the nail glue, the eyelash glue, and anything with a fragrance, this all goes right through your skin. That epoxy and some of those different chemicals in it will pull all of these toxic chemicals right through your nail bed, right through your skin. They're fat soluble, so they're going to go right to fatty areas of your body, and your ovaries are one area that are very fatty. So they're going to go right to those. Many of these are very similar to your hormones, to estrogen, to testosterone. So they are going to mimic hormones, but in a way that's dysregulated. So they are actually going to dysregulate your reproductive health. Now, these accumulate, and you actually detox everything, including these chemicals, into your baby. A study showed that babies were born with 287 of these chemicals in them. And they didn't even test for all of them, right?
That's crazy.
So this means we should be detoxing before we get pregnant. It's coming from dad and mom. It's not just mom. So, but mom is detoxing into her infant. If that infant, when she's pregnant, is a girl, it's actually affecting the cells of the uterus. It's reformatting them because these chemicals are sticking to the DNA, and the DNA is not responding properly to hormones. And when that child grows up, she's more likely to have precocious puberty, problems with menstruation, uterine fibroids, and endometriosis.
Wow.
From the beauty products that her mom used years ago, right? The males, because of the estrogen-like effects of many of these, actually have aberrant sexual development. That can be a misplacement of the hole that's in the end of the penis. It can be the testicles don't drop down properly. It can, and if it's doing that to the actual anatomical structure, think of what it's doing to all of the cells that are supposed to be XY, but they're not responding in the right way. And so it's feminizing and causing sexual dysfunction in our boys from the time that they were gestated. So this is where, we can argue the morality, the biblical morality of homosexuality or of all of these different things. But, I think from my perspective as a scientist, I'm, just going to stay in my lane. I'm not a, reverend or anything. I want to say, what are we doing that's putting people into this boat in the first place? Right. And how can we prevent like a biochemical sexual dysregulation that is then going to cause all sorts of confusion in the people who have it? There are real biological reasons for a lot of what we're seeing. And we need to decide how we're going to deal with that as a society, because it really is a diseased or dysfunctional state. Now, I'm not saying the person is, I'm just saying all the things that they're carrying.
I want to get into as far as just the, what are some things that people should look for when purchasing, beauty products? What are some things that, what are some of the, chemicals or ingredients that are common in beauty products that people should look for?
Well, usually it's what you're looking not to get, right? But I was surprised. I was really shocked, and I think we talked about this, to find that there was placenta in women's beauty products. So the thing is, Black women, 50 to 80% of Black women use these beauty products, where it's only like 17% of Caucasian women. So we are predominantly, overwhelmingly using these beauty products that are toxic. Now, there are more non-toxic beauty products, but the biggest thing that we found in them, beyond the epoxies and some of the nail products, is fragrance. So anything that's highly fragranced. So this also goes for like the Glade that you spray in the air, or
Right.
all of these different things, candles that are heavily scented that don't use essential oils. Anything that's heavily scented, especially if you put it on your skin. So you're talking about hair products, you're talking about body wash, and even, scented feminine hygiene products or douches. That fragrance, they don't have to disclose what's in there. And when they checked, the stuff that was labeled as fragrance was super toxic, super toxic.
Wow.
And your body accumulates it, and it doesn't actually get rid of it until sometimes, you get pregnant and detoxes into your child. So as you absorb these, this is going to cause more and more dysregulation in your body. And it's the kind of thing, you're going to have all these health issues, and you're not going to know what's wrong. You're going to go to your doctor, and they're not going to know what's wrong, because it's like an accumulation of toxic substances that are having like all kinds of different weird effects all combined.
Right.
And so on my site, I do have, if you go to Healing, Where Do I Begin? I actually have PDFs that have links to products, whether they're cleaning products or beauty products, that are cleaner. And I would like to see in our communities us develop our own products that we can sell to one another that meet these. And there's an app that's like, I think Clean or something, that like rates different beauty products so that you can see how clean or dirty they are. I would say if it's sold at Walmart, for the most part, stay away from it. Some of the most toxic ones they had, there was a study done. I think it was something, It's So Pretty or something. It's in my, no, I haven't given that lecture for Vaita yet, but that showed like some of how much of these chemicals were in it. And some of the fragrances sold at Walmart were like just absolutely hideous in terms of the amount of these toxins.
I want to get into, as far as the healthcare system, like where do you see the future of the healthcare system, or especially the holistic, aspect of things?
Well, I think we're in the middle of a shift, and it's a very, very uncomfortable place to be, because there's no money for those of us who are trying to do it right. And then the people who want to access those services also have no money. Their insurance isn't going to cover it. And we're seeing a huge level of dissatisfaction with the healthcare industry in terms of our chronic health. If you're in a car accident, pretty much no one's complaining. But when you're talking about their ability to help you resolve your autoimmune disease, people are not seeing it. So there's a great level of dissatisfaction. And I think people are moving further over to addressing root causes. But it's really a painful transition, because there's no money in that. And so practitioners who want to move in that direction have student loans and, house payments and car payments. And so we're in a very painful transition. But I think that transition is going to be made. And that's what I try to do to help people. I said, I would prefer that everyone have their own practitioner, but there aren't enough holistic practitioners that have that knowledge. And so I'm like, how can we piece by piece give people the information to take control of their health? So what I foresee is people becoming much more educated about what the issues are, and that's going to force the medical establishment to move. Now, right now, the medical establishment is fueled by oil-driven pharmaceutical product profits. Right? They're fueled by oil, big ag, big pharma, all in one. And so this is a conglomerate that's like a behemoth, right? Like a 7-headed hydra. And it's very hard to chip away at that establishment, because it is so immersed in our economies. And so this is really going to have to be a grassroots thing, that one by one, people making choices drain the energy from this behemoth.
Now, one thing that I've really noticed within, especially social media, the power of social media is absolutely incredible nowadays, because there's a lot more people that I'm noticing that are getting more into, holistic health. I see people really establish or really talk about like, hey, these are the natural remedies you can use for, a certain, illness that you have, or a certain, injury that you have, and things like that, whether it's teas or, natural concoctions with like different fruits and herbs and things like that, and one thing I've also understood as well, and I've learned more about recently is hydration. And, the thing is that, you can drink a whole ton of water and not be hydrated. So, the thing is, some people talk about, H3O2, where it involves, like different, certain fruits, like, melons, like watermelon or cucumber or honeydew or, cantaloupe, because those contain a great amount of water. Another way you can hydrate is, with adding, a Himalayan salt or Celtic salt. So, I'm glad that there's people more aware about, the natural aspect of things, of how to heal.
Right. And I think it's such a fascinating, you're coming at it from one aspect, and it's one of my core interests is water. And what you're saying is it's not just the water itself, it's how the water is structured. And our water is structured as a gel in our body. And in order to structure itself as a gel, it needs minerals, which you pointed out in terms of the sea salt. So we need the water itself. Sometimes fruits and other living things actually structure that water for us. So when we eat them, it comes into our body already in a form that actually creates these gradients that allow our bodies, think of it as like a battery, to hold and transport energy and substances in the most effective way. And our bodies are made to actually structure the water themselves, but that takes a lot of energy, and everything has to be working properly. So I know things like sea moss and bladderwrack have substances in them that also help our bodies. They have minerals, but they also help our bodies to structure that water. And those compounds sort of line our blood vessels, line our digestive system, and that's what brings that hydration. But it's more than hydration. It's a concentration gradient that makes all physiological reactions possible in their optimal solution. So these are complex things. It's actually turning our bodies more into a more effective battery, right, for transmitting energy. So these are really, really super critical topics for us to start to understand moving forward. And you can understand it from a simple way. When I do this, it works. Right. Exactly. I feel better. Or you can start understanding it from the deep aspect. And one of the reasons I want us to understand it from the deep aspect is I know people that are so injured, very near death. And when they're in such a state of dysregulation, their body isn't structuring their water. Their body isn't doing these things itself. So then you ask the question, what can I do to support the body in doing this while it is in such a hugely dysregulated state? And that's when just adding drugs to the system isn't helping, whereas maybe adding a structured juice from a fruit would, or a sulfated polysaccharide from bladderwrack or something is actually going to aid in that, not just hydration, but to reestablish the chemical gradients of the body in the actual, in terms of its energetic core. Stabilizing. And that's what I would say. You're actually stabilizing the energetic core of the body. And so this is where it actually brings together everything from food science to biochemistry to chemistry, but also to physics, and the physics of the energy transfer that's happening in the body.
Wow, that's very, very interesting. So last but not least, where can people find you on social media, and how can people support and contribute to Vaita?
Sure. So Vaita is just vi-ta.org. And so subscribe. There's a ton of information that you're going to want to have. You can also donate, but Vaita, vi-ta.org. I do a lot of my videos on Instagram. I'm at Epigenetic Healing, I know I was trying to be stealth because I'm kind of super censored. But I am on Twitter or X at Dr. C. Parks 1, at Dr. C. Parks 1. I'm on Telegram as well. And I'm on Facebook as just Christina Parks. And I don't post a lot there because I'm super censored, but you can DM me on my Facebook. That's one. I do check my Facebook DM every day very frequently. So that's a way to get a hold of me if you want to ask me on a podcast or something. Eventually, I will have my own website under my name, not just Vaita, where you can book me for things, but we're working on getting that up and running.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Christina, for jumping on. I really appreciate this conversation. I think this is a really much needed conversation, especially in terms of the beauty industry, especially within health, holistic health as well. I really enjoyed your insight and your knowledge and your expertise, and breaking things down on a very, very deeper level, not just in surface level. So, I really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I did too. I think it was a far-ranging topics and great questions. So thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to click the bell for notifications. Also follow me on my social media platforms and be on the lookout for more interviews to come very soon. Take care and stay beautiful.